are doing something a lot unexpected for our Amplified Life. I'm going to give you a little backstory before I tell you what it is. As Rebecca and I became better friends and started talking more on a regular basis, every once in a while we would say, oh, well, I'm doing this today, or oh, I have to fix this. And what we found out is that both of us are very hands-on when it comes to upkeeping and doing home renovations. So we thought it might be kind of fun to bring you into that world a little bit, and some little tips that we've learned over the time. We're not going to dive into anything, but we are going to give you some things that we've learned, some things that maybe we have come up with. Now, if you're one of my clients, you've been probably following the journey of me completely renovating my office and Breeley's bedroom, and that sort of sparked the conversation. But Rebecca and I, neither one of us are afraid to take a hammer to sheetrock. And so we just thought we would pull you into that part of our world just a little bit. So Rebecca, I'm actually going to turn it over to you. And I know what I have as far as a process. I know that I always have a plan in place. We will kind of dive into that, but why don't you tell me, are you one that plans things out for months, or do you get a spontaneous idea of something that needs to be fixed and you just go for it?
I have to say I'm a little bit of both. So there's a lot of spontaneity in my life, because just last week, I knocked out my closet in our bedroom so that I could make room for a king size bed. And so there's spontaneity, but the bigger projects, I really like to kind of think about them and do parts of them and then live with it, and then kind of make sure that what is in my head is going to look the way I expect it to in real life. And so for some of those other things, then I kind of plan things out. But I am very much just kind of fly by the seat of my pants on a lot of things. And if I decide I want something done and I've got some spare time, then it just happens.
I'm sort of that way. Now, I know that you grew up mechanicking with your dad, so this is probably a much more natural thing for you than it is for me. My journey to doing all of these things really just started with painting. I remember painting Breeley's room when she was coming, when I was pregnant, and I was so afraid to do anything. So I had a girlfriend come and helped me paint. And it was the first time I really took on a room. And then I like to have more time, because one thing that I think both of us could tell you is the project is always going to take a little bit longer than planned, or you may end up finding there's something else in the way that has to be taken care of first. So I like to have a lot of time. The one project I did, my husband was going fishing and he literally was going to be gone for 3 days, and I needed my bedroom completely painted. It had vaulted ceilings, so I skipped the ceiling in there, but I had to sand down all the sheetrock, and that took a full day. And that was one of those things I didn't plan for. I thought it would come off so easy. Luckily, I had access to an electric sander, and I repainted my cabinets, and I was so tired. So I would never recommend like limiting your time. Of course, sometimes we do that, and I wanted to surprise my husband, but I really bit off a lot that I could chew. But that was probably one of the best projects I did to say I can do this. And I mean, I put a ladder on top of my bed frame to be able to reach the vaulted ceilings. And my journey in home improvement has just come from necessity, but also my husband can fix anything. He can do anything. I leave the lighting to him. I leave electrical to him. So I think the second part is knowing your limitations and what you can and can't fix. For me, I don't deal with electrical. Now, I know you will dive into that, but I really, if I'm going to do a project, I have learned I just tell my husband what I'm going to do, and then I give him some time to process what I will need his help with. And so I've learned we don't play well together in projects. So I have to be able to give him time to want to come in and do it on his time. And then I can frantically be doing whatever. So I know that I'm going to be tired. I've done it enough now that, okay, I might be tired of doing flooring, or I'm going to paint and I'm going to do this, so that I get a little break and I can kind of, so my brain naturally, I know the systems that I need and what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, but there's always those hiccups. You just took out your closet. That I think knowing your limitations also falls into us physically. Both Rebecca and I are in our mid 40s. So Rebecca, why don't you talk a little bit about, you obviously knocked that wall out because you had to, that your bed was coming. So that was one of those last minute decisions. But what have you noticed is really hard on you? What tools would you recommend somebody having? I mean, why don't you take us on a little bit of a journey / story with some of the things you've actually done that you love that you did, and some that you probably wouldn't want to do again?
Yeah. Okay. Well, most all of it is hard on me physically, and I'm just willing to kind of push through and make it happen. A friend of mine was over this morning, and I showed her the new bed, and we were talking about some different things and some projects that I have got that I am going to accomplish up this year. And she says, "You're going to do that yourself?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she says, "Oh my gosh." And it's like, well, I like to have nice things and updated things, and I've never had a problem with being too cashed up. So I just kind of make things work. And there is a lot that can be said about doing things yourself. For one, you can know the quality that you're putting into it. And I think that that's maybe one of the things that keeps people from doing things themselves, is because they're afraid that the quality is going to be lacking. But honestly, what I found is the things that I do myself, I have a vested interest in, and I know that they are going to be done right. And looking at some of the things that we've hired people to do over the years, it's so frustrating because things are not done like they should be. And so I don't know. I think that I love that you talked about starting with painting, because I feel like that's one of the things to really just jump into the DIY waters, because you can't screw anything up with paint. If you do, it's easily fixable. It's also one of the most economical things that you can do, and it makes such a huge difference when it's done. So some things that I've tackled the last few years, I painted our kitchen cabinets white. They were this old 1970s funky, like not even a pretty oak color, just this weird, anyway, weird yucky color. And I was done with it. I thought I'd get those done. My husband travels for work, and he's gone 2 days a week. And I usually try to do my projects in those 2 days, because he doesn't enjoy having things torn up. And I totally appreciate that. So I thought, he's going to be gone a couple of days, I'm going to paint these cabinets. And I had done a lot of the pre-work ahead of time, as far as really cleaning the gunk, sanding, all of the things. So I thought, no problem, I can get this done in 2 days. It took me 2 weeks. But again, I primed, sanded, painted, sanded, painted, sanded. And so I feel like there was so much extra legwork that went into it, but I wanted it done right. And I knew if I was going to invest the time in it, then I may as well do it right the first time. And my mom was even up and helped me for 2 of those 2 weeks, 2 days of the 2 weeks. And so yeah, never underestimate. Well, know that you're always going to underestimate how long something actually takes. And then another project that I tackled here the last year or so is our half bath it was Kevin's bathroom basically. So there's a toilet and a sink, and then my washer was in there. And then my dryer was on the back porch, which was like through 2 rooms and back out on the back porch. And I was over it. So I got myself a stackable washer and dryer so that it would fit in the space. And I replumbed because of course it wouldn't fit where the washer was. And anyway, replumbed it, rewired it. And I will say that wiring is one thing that kind of freaks me out a little bit, but I'm careful. And I do know how. I've been around enough people that are electricians that have coached me through the years. So it's not like it's unsafe, but electricity kind of freaks me out. So knowing your limits is huge.
I just don't even go there. You're brave, but you did grow up mechanicking on vehicles and stuff. So, you know, and I know that you've laid tile. I haven't tackled that yet. The other thing that I thought we should chat about is, how do you know what is cost effective and what is not? And you kind of touched on it with paint. I think sometimes you have to figure out, what is your motivation for doing this? Is it a specific area? Is it functionality? Is it the fact that it just needs to be updated? So for example, I actually moved my husband out of his office because my cabbie office was in our dining room and I wanted my dining room back. He was not really happy about that, but I knew that it would become a much more functional space. So the motivation for that transition that I did was truly for function and for our entire family. So that was pretty much just patching walls, repainting, and moving heavy furniture. Now, what I just did with my office, which was Garrett's office and Breeley's bedroom, they're neighboring, and then we share a bathroom. The whole purpose of me doing it was to get rid of the carpet. I hated that carpet. I couldn't afford to put, when we had hardwoods put into our home, I couldn't afford these extra 2 rooms. It just was way past budget. And I just had to say enough is enough. So the motivation for me doing this project was truly to get rid of that carpet. So that being said, financially, I knew I still had some paint from when I painted this office and the dining room that I really didn't need to go buy. So I knew I could save money on paint if I painted it to be cohesive through my house. So I had the paint for the trim, I had the paint for the ceiling, and I already had the paint for the walls. That was a big cost that I had spent back in November that I saved, knowing that I would keep that paint. So the one thing I regret, I went very inexpensive on, I thought I was getting vinyl flooring. I ended up with laminate flooring. The mistake I made on this one was that I truly was just looking for something to match the hardwood floors. It matches phenomenal. But I didn't really know a lot about laminate, and I didn't know much about vinyl. So luckily these are 2 small areas. The purpose of me doing it was to get rid of the carpet. And I only have, I had a very tight budget. So it fit within the budget of what I was doing. Plus it was the first time I'd ever laid flooring myself. I found a fantastic YouTube channel, and I would say the number one thing, if you're going to tackle anything new, is do your research in advance. I thought I did, but then I kind of hit panic mode, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I lay this wrong, the measurements are going to be wrong. And so do your research, find more than one expert that you can study. So I studied several YouTube channels until I found this one person that I really liked how he talked. I really liked how he explained things, but more importantly, I loved how he measured out everything. So I did end up pulling the floor back up a little bit because I wasn't doing it properly. I wasn't getting the gaps closed like I needed to. And so, you know, I was raised sewing, and I was taught if you don't sew it correctly, you unpick it. And so I used that same idea on the flooring, and I'm so grateful I went back and did that because it came together phenomenal. Also, you have to embrace a few imperfections. Yes, you can do it right, as Rebecca said, but I don't have all of the proper tools to make all of the proper cuts. And so I knew I was going to be dealing with that. And for the most part, any cut that I didn't make properly, I was able to hide with the trim or anything like that. But I also knew going into it that I didn't have a table saw, that I didn't have the right things, that, you know, we just don't have all of those things. So I pretty much did everything with a handsaw. I got it as straight as I could, and it was amazing. And so you don't let the tools you have limit you either. There's always a way that you can do it. But if you find the right experts, you're not going to need that many tools anyway. You can really get away with things that you have. So I would say do your research in advance. And also, social media is amazing. If you see friends doing things on social media, reach out to them, ask them what they wish they would have done, because they may tell you something that an expert is not going to mention, that they might think is just common knowledge. So that was the other thing. I did reach out to several women who had installed laminate flooring because I wanted their perspective. Not that a man can't tell me, but I think we think of things a little bit different as far as functionality, how it's going to flow, what look we want. That I think men are more practical with, they're going to put it in and they don't care if there's a transition here or a transition there. I didn't think about water resistance because I thought all vinyl flooring was water resistant. So that's where your research is really, really important. As I said, these are 2 small rooms. I knew it was going to cover getting rid of that carpet, and that was my #1 goal. And so I really think that is something that you need to take a lead on. What's important? What can you get by with? And what can you recycle? So I've repainted Freely's furniture. I repainted a bookshelf. I got rid of an old dresser. What can you do with that space that you already have? And that's really going to help save cost. It may take more time, however. So that's one of those things you have to think of. If I'm going to save the money on this end, am I willing to put the time into it? Little elbow grease.
Yeah. I think what you just said, there's a nugget in there that you just said that I don't want people to gloss over, because, you know, you didn't spend the maximum amount of money on this flooring. You went in with more of an economical type flooring. And I think that's so smart when we're doing things for the first time. You know, let's not throw all the money at the project, because then you're really going to be hesitant and worked up about things. And if something isn't quite right, then you're really going to kind of have a come apart. But with something that is just a little bit more economical to start with, here you've gained this vast amount of knowledge. You already know things that you would do differently, things that you probably figured out at the tail end of the project that made it so much easier that you'll be able to implement the next time. And you could bump that up and put a more like luxury vinyl plank or something like that in the next go round.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like we discussed with clothing. Invest in the things that you know. And when we talk about accessories, right, we always say, if you don't know if you'll like this kind of belt, buy a cheaper version until you know you love it. And that's sort of what I've done with my home. So, you know, I think the other thing that has really helped me is just understanding color. And the fashion world has really helped me build confidence going into renovations. I know it sounds cheeky, but it's one of those things where I know this is complementary. This is going to be calming. For me, everything is about how I feel. And it wasn't like that when I was young. I just thought, oh, that would be fun. And I didn't realize how much something drove me crazy. So definitely think about what's cohesive for you, what kind of mood you want to be in. I knew I was doing a bedroom. She needed to be able to go in and relax and have it kind of be her safe place. But the color was beautiful enough that I carried it into my office, and I, just love that. And the other thing I did with her room is it really is going to be anything that's bold color is an accessory. So you can think about your home much like you can clothing. You're going to have your main wardrobe that you spend the money on. You're going to have your main rooms that you spend your money on. And then anything that I've put in her room, she wanted purple. That's purple is something that's easily replaced. So as she grows up, the room can grow with her in a really beautiful way. And that was the other thing that was really important to me. I didn't want it to be cheesy. I did the novelty thing when she was young, and now I wanted it to be able to gravitate with just maybe a fresh coat of paint in 5 years or something as she graduates, or maybe I could turn it to a guest room. So that she is in that phase of life where I wanted to think a little bit more long-term than just the next few years.
Yeah, I think that's just so smart, because how often do we change our minds on things? I know that it happens for me all the time. And so it's nice to be able to have that strong foundation, just like we talk about doing the base wardrobe that then you can take and add things in, take things out, but you always know it's going to work for you. Same thing with your home. So very, very smart. I think, and you asked about tools earlier. So one of the things that used to hold me back is that I didn't have much for tools. And that is something that I just kind of started the projects that I was able to do with the things that I had. And then as I was able to add a few different tools, then I would kind of add different projects, or they just enabled me to do the same project more efficiently. Like having a miter saw is so much easier than using the miter box and handsaw, but the miter box and handsaw worked for a very long time for me. And then I found a miter saw on sale. It's a used one. Some guy had it and it's been working perfectly for me. I can't wait to bump up to a compound miter saw and be able to do even more fun things. But I think it's so important to just kind of start where you are. And as with any new skill, as you do it, you're going to gain confidence. So if you start small with a project and you get that done and you look at it and go, oh my gosh, I did that. There's such a sense of pride in doing things yourself. And then you're going to see another thing that needs to be done. And you're going to look at that and go, never done that, not sure about it, but I'm going to figure it out. And there is a wealth of free knowledge available on YouTube, via Google. It's amazing what you can learn to do just by doing your research and watching YouTube videos, especially YouTube videos. I feel like anything you ever wanted to possibly do, you could find out how to do it on YouTube. And I know Amy has some favorite channels. I have some favorite channels on YouTube, and we can leave that in the description below so that you guys can take that. And we would love to hear from you if you've got some favorite channels on YouTube that are just full of invaluable information.
One thing I was going to say is anybody that has a YouTube channel will have more than likely a private group on Facebook. So join those groups. That's where you can ask a lot of questions and get immediate feedback, because those are people that are going through it with you. Amazing. Now, there's so many fun techniques. Chalk painting is fun if you want to redo some furniture. I would much rather be outside doing projects. So some of the things I've done, you would never know I did them. And that's okay too. I think the biggest thing is you guys don't be held back by fear. There is so many things that you can do that just blows yourself away. And Rebecca was talking about looking back on those projects. And I can tell you, I know because Breely has already written me a 2-page letter front and back about how much she cannot wait to see her bedroom. Now, if you're watching this in a couple weeks past when we're recording it, she's already had her reveal, but she wants a Chip and Joanna Gaines type reveal. So she hasn't seen her room, but she's seen the work and she's seen me carry things in and out, and she's so excited. And it really does mean a lot to her that I have taken time to do this. I think one other thing I would say is don't be afraid to walk away and give yourself a break. Plan those breaks in, even if they're spontaneous breaks. If your back is hurting, if you're just getting frustrated, I put a great big old hole with a drywall screw yesterday in Breely's wall, and I was just tired. And I think if you get so tired that you start to make more mistakes, that's a good signal to just stop and walk away, even if it's for an hour, even if it's till the next day. And I was simply able to you can get a little patch for holes, and I patched it up and spackled it, and it's fine. Like, it's not worth, I'm so much more mellow than I used to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think that comes with experience too. It's like, another hole. And it is what it is. Sheetrock is fixable. And so I also knew I was going to cover it with something. So it was like, I'll fix it later. It's just one of those things that it's not really worth getting frustrated over, but that's a good time to just walk away. And, maybe a meal and a drink. I tend to forget to eat. I tend to not drink. I put everything aside. I think that to end this, that's probably the last thing to think about. If there's a lot going on in your life that is also high priority, it may not be the time to take something on. Because for me, when I'm in a project, I'm in it all the way until it's done. And it takes time. And so it's hard enough for me to keep up on my cabbie business and life and the project. So just keep that in mind. Right now, my house is a total disaster because all of my attention has been on this project. So I just know there's going to be 2 weeks of work after the project is over to get my house cleaned back up. And that is also part of it. But if there's really something you want to do and you just don't know how, it is more than okay to ask people to come in and do it. If you don't have the time, the money, maybe you have the money and you don't have the time, that's also something to think about. But for me, I kind of wanted to get rid of that carpet so bad. I was like, I'm fine putting everything else on the back burner for a little while. And I think you just have to learn the give and take of doing that, because you're dirty. My nails are destroyed. You feel like you've been camping 3 weeks straight by the time I think this is the first time I've actually had my hair and makeup done since Breely's tumbling competition. So
Yeah.
We just wanted to kind of talk about some ebbs and flows. But Rebecca, is there any other last thoughts you have?
No, I think as with everything, just give yourself grace and be willing to not be fantastic at something so that you can get better at it. That's just another huge thing, that you just have to be willing to suck at it before you get good at it.
And that goes right back to fashion too.
Yeah.
People always say, I don't know how to dress. It just takes one thing. It takes one capsule. It takes one tip on learning your body. So this may feel like an out of the box conversation, but we amplify each other, and that's what this channel is about. So we're hoping that this was a fun kind of detour for you. And if you have any questions, let us know.
All right. Well, as always, thank you for joining us for another edition of Our Amplified Life. And we enjoy doing these conversations. We kind of go on a lot of different topics. So we've talked about food and fitness and mental health after 40 on one of these. We've done lots. If you are here for the fashion, we've got lots of different trend videos and outfit inspiration videos. So make sure that you take a look at the playlist that we have. The ones for this spring are all in a separate playlist. So we've made it seasonal for you, and we try to make it really easy for you to hop in, see what you want to see, and hop out. And we appreciate you being here with us each and every week. Have a blessed day.